Okay, so I did watch the remaining portion of Cloak and Dagger and Runaways. Let's deal with Cloak and Dagger first. I don't want to go too much into it. It's a flawed season B, but I see what they were trying to do, so let's talk about that instead of, complaining all about. So there is this guy who is also magic, and he finds out that to escape all his problem he could become a sort of deity, and he actually managed to do that. There is a slight problem with this because Loa don't just have power but are supposed to have, an area of influence, if you want to call it like that, so obligations. But the only reason he became a Loa was to get rid of his headaches permanently. Sure, that solves the problem of emptying people for his own good, but well, what else is he gonna do? Like, there is the crossroad demon, there is the vengeance demon, God, deity, and so on and so on. So yeah, so he gets killed in the end. By the way, this law business starts with one of the earlier episodes. Uh, one of a big gang gathering gets wrecked, and someone is making the symbol of Mama Bridget. And that's actually referring to the female co-protagonist, whose name is Bridget O'Reilly. So that's a clever wordplay if you want. Now, the show got a bit lazy with this Loa plot development, because the Loas were supposed to have their own plane of existence, not just live in the dungeon dimension, the dark dimension, but they do because, they do. It was cheaper that way, I guess. So I feel that although Cloak and Dagger was a surprisingly interesting series, it was like Erie, Indiana. It's a Goosebumps-like series, was which, if you watch the series, you feel they ran out of steam. So the cancellation did actually manage to save it for the future generation and made it a cult hit. For other developments, there is the girlfriend of Tyron, aka Cloak, and she gets a prophecy that, or direction, that she has to marry a Loa to unlock her full power or something like that. This implies, as you know, that Cloak, aka Tyron, will later in his lifespan, will become a Loa. And that is just a neat little trick the show pulls that makes you create the continuation of the story in your own head without, directly pointing out everything. It's a nice trick sometimes shows they do. And talking about what's with the protagonist, they managed, at least Cloak, aka Tyron, manages to scare the local drug dealers to only sell drugs for, so to say, personal use, and not to those people who are obviously uh, will knock out people for all kind of nasty things, like Gina Samsvan or date rape, and of course women trafficking. Not that for the women trafficking you would need actually want actual drugs, but you would want medical supplies, anesthetics and all that. At least I didn't hear that drug dealers deal in that kind of stuff too, but I'm not familiar with the culture, so I mean, I had friends who were into that kind of stuff, and well, maybe I was just in some elite club, and they only did mushrooms and some of the and the joints and some of the powders sometimes, and all the famous stuff that you meet in movies doing drugs. So they didn't do, I don't know, so professional anesthetics. Anyway, and the end, Cloak and Dagger moves out of New Orleans and or whatever they were, wherever they were, and decide to become a superhero. And this is what leads us to Runaways. So Runaways are having their troubles with this Morgana witch who is doing orgies, so she's definitely evil, and this is funny. This is some kind of stunt that Scarlett Johansson post-humanist movie did, which came out like after the last minute. We did declare humans are using only 10% of their mind and unlocking the full potential. Uh, that was a fun movie, but here uh, they this Morgana uses mobile phones to influence everybody and make them aggressive. Yeah, that was a thing when TV was already sure they don't go away. So what will cause the brain rot? Computer games, absolutely, computers are the devil. And then for a brief period when the touch screens and it really start to show its potential, people were scaring you that it will absolutely brain rot you and get influenced. Also, you get cancer of it, but you will be mind controlled by the CIA or something through your wavelengths and that. Really, it is. It was a thing. It was a thing like the Y2K virus or problem or whatever it was. Now, so for at the end of episode 7, I accidentally watched the war remaining episodes. I wanted to skip episode 6 and 7, I think, but in the end I maybe skipped 6, but I watched accidentally 7 too. Anyway, so it was fine. It's telling you all the stuff you want if you didn't figure it out for yourself. Episode 8 is the crossover episode for Cloak and Dagger, and they are in full superhero mode. You should hear the Hungarian dub did For the Cloak and Dagger series, both they had a fitting voice, but here I think for probably both got changed, but the important is Cloak, aka Tyron, who got a very adult voice, at least 10 years plus, and like an octave lower. You know, he talks like this in the series, and he talks like this in the Runaways. It's very deep voice. I don't know what were they thinking, but sure, whatever what they achieve, absolutely nothing. So you can cut out them. Actually, you can cut out the entire episode 8 from the series, and it wouldn't change. It wouldn't influence what you get from the story and what is the story, how it shapes, and anything like that. It wouldn't harm if you cut it out. It wouldn't help either. So whatever. And surprisingly, so there is 10 episodes in the season, and we already had like two story, one dealing with the aliens and then the dream dimension, and now Morgana, and the Morgana story ends in episode 9, and you are sitting there. There is an entire extra episode here. What are we doing? And it turns itself into a time traveling, self contained story where the jock invents time travel and travels back from 2028 to 2022. Now, where did I put my fucking timeline? Yep. Which is 3 years past the events of the series proper. It seems they were year 1 in middle school, and they ended up, and they are going to university in this one or something like that. Yeah, that's exactly. So that seems to be a fitting time. So the show actually takes place in 2019, just after Infinity Wars, which disproves the claim that all the other companies' shows happened before Endgame and Infinity War. Endgame happened in 2023, but who cares? Or maybe that's important. Whatever. Either way, that's a fun timeline fact. Now, somehow Alex, the computer jockey, also travels back in time because someone blew up his office, so he wants to kill everybody. By the way, it was supposed to be that he turned evil in the dream dimension because he got emptied out by someone. It's the same thing like what happened with Dagger in their own show. But here it was acceptable because there are many people and it's kind of character development, and he spent so much time there, and there is some magical stuff also happened. Anyway, so this happening in the Runaways, it was acceptable, but it never really came to fruition, so I think that was a hasty rewrite because the show got cancelled. Now, of course, he didn't succeed with this and travels back to 2019. That's the origin, they managed to save the only member of the Runaways who actually died in the confrontation with Morgana, so makes it easy. There are no consequences. So, do I hate it? Do I hate this second season C and D stories? No, they are serviceable. They are nothing major, depending how affiliated you are to the characters. 5 or 6 out of 10, so it's nothing majorly harmful, but can be watched, but you don't gain much out of it unless you are liking the characters or the actors or whatever. So yeah, finally we got finished with this one, and there is just to mention, I already told it, but worth repeating, there was that two series actually, according to Wikipedia, belongs to the X-Men universe, and that was interesting because I never even heard of those. So you could ask what is going on, but turns out we don't really have to bother with any of them because the one is obviously not canon. Legion it's just a what if timeline. It doesn't even fit to any of the, doesn't even reference any of the previous X-Men installments. And the other the Gifted, one of them anyway. I don't know if the is in the title at the moment. Anyway, it's like the Runaways. It's sometimes there is it, sometimes there isn't. Supposedly not, but it helps to find it. Anyway, it could fit in the timeline, but it never references any other X-Men properties of the 20th Century Fox. So it's like hanging in the air like Moon Knight. So unless something in the future references it, it's by the way, according to some description, there is this bunch of mutants who try to cross the border, this time to Mexico, not Canada, like in Logan, but they are running from the Sentinel robots because, of course, we have to have the Sentinel robots. The development phases, all articles claim that it was supposed to connect to others, but like X-Men movies, but they decided against it because it was just too much hassle. And there was all the selling of business, of course, the studio. And actually, the same is true for the New Mutants. There is possible hints of connections, like they mentioned the Essex company and one of the scientists, but that in the movies worked for Transgen. So it's, who knows what timeline it's supposed to fit. It's just its own thing floating in there, and if no data would arise, then we would connect to the big great scene and big chart, but it's important enough to mention it. It's unlike Legion, which is very obviously its own thing and we don't want to bother with it. I put it in the what if timeline. I mean the what if group, but that's not a timeline. So yeah, I put out a video of this one too. We have like 3 more days until the new year, a couple more hours if we are considering the time lapse, so maybe like 4 days. But I doubt I could manage to cram everything remaining into that, even with dropping out entire shows like Gifted.